Today I'm making leek and potato soup, and this is to demonstrate gelatinisation. If you remember at the end of last term I made the white sauce to demonstrate gelatinisation. Today there's something you can make as well. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to chop up my leeks. I've already chopped one, but I'm going to chop one in front of the camera just so you know which bits to chop off and everything. So obviously you don't need this bit. There we go. I was chopping a leek the other day actually, and it was just like an onion. My eyes started watering, so actually be careful because it can make your eyes water. Once you chop the top and that root bit off, then you need to chop it lengthways. So the best way to do that is to do the bridge grip like that, so then it doesn't roll and you don't cut yourself, and then just go through the middle like that and down. And then put the two flat sides on the chopping board so then it's nice and stable. And then you just need to chop it into pieces. So you got to do that. I'll do it to this angle. So claw, so making sure your thumb's out the way like that. And then I'm just going to go down, down, and just move along, making sure moving your hands out the way. The end of your finger off. There we go. Okay, so I've got my leeks chopped up, and also you need to dice the potatoes. So before I dice the potatoes, actually, I'm just going to put my oil on. I don't want you to do this at your house. I'm just doing it for quickness purposes. So I've got a tablespoon here, and I'm just going to use 2 tablespoons of oil. I've got rapeseed oil here. I use that for most of my cooking at home because it's a little bit healthier than vegetable oil. There we go. Back over to here. So potatoes. So I'm going to, again, bridge grip like that. I'm going to go down the middle, and then once you've got your 2 halves, then you need to cut those into strips like that. And then you need to put them on the side. So just imagine you're making chips. I normally make homemade chips actually on a Friday, which turn out quite nice. And they're healthier than chip shop chips, and also healthier than oven chips as well. There we go. And then turn them to the side like that, claw and cut down, and then it will go into cubes like that. Same the other bits. There we go. And then yeah, that's chopped like that and like that. So it's just a methodical way of doing it. So again, your potato down the middle like that. Always make sure you put the flat side down, otherwise it will just wobble about. Bridge, down, down, and then you can turn these onto their side and then cut them into chips like that, and then into chips, and then you turn that to the side, making sure your thumb's out the way, and then cut it into chunks. Oh, and this bit here. And then I'll just throw a bit on the front. And then the last bit. So you've got your potato, got your leeks. I've already grated my cheese, but grate your cheese at this point because you will need your cheese. That's for the very end part, and that really adds to the flavour, I find, cheese. The next thing I'm going to do is to make my stock. So I've already pre-boiled my kettle. I'm going to just get a vegetable stock cube. You can use a chicken stock cube if you like, or you could use one of those like jelly pots things, the stock pots, or you could even use, I've got this actually, it's in my cupboard, which I quite often use, stock powder. So can you see that, Albert? Yeah, I quite often use that. I find it quite salty though. I'm just going to use a stock cube. Make sure you crumble it up, otherwise it will just literally stick to the bottom and then the flavour won't actually go into the soup. And then, so you need 1.2 litres. I can only fit a litre in here, so I'll add the rest afterwards. And the reason there's so much water is because as you're making soup, it's going to evaporate. So you will end up with less liquid at the end. Now, as I'm going over in this direction, I can feel that my pan's getting hotter. So it's really important to make sure your oil's hot. If it's not hot, then when you put your leeks in, it will just absorb all the oil and they'll be really greasy. So you just need to make sure it's hot. You want to hear a sizzle, basically, when you add the leeks. So I'm just going to bring them over and Perfect. That's the fiddle. You do. And the rest of the leek. And in they go. Nice sizzling noise, very satisfying sizzling there. And I'm just going to grab a spoon. It's okay, you can just move it around. Oh, here we go. So give them a stir. And already I can smell, I love the smell of leeks. I can smell them. Now you want to put the leeks in first because the leeks are the main flavour and you just want the flavour to infuse in the potatoes. And if you don't cook the leeks a little bit first, then once you add the water, then it's going to be very bitter. Because if you can imagine eating a raw onion, then it's a very bitter taste, isn't it? And it's the same with leeks. But once you cook it and it starts to caramelise a bit, then that really softens the flavour. You really want to have that oniony, leeky kind of flavour, but without it being bitter, because that makes the whole thing taste unpleasant. So I'm just stirring this around, and you want the leeks to start going slightly brownish, but not too brown. And a really good way of telling if leeks or onions are cooked is they go from being completely opaque to being translucent. So if you held one in your hand, you see through it a little bit. So I think that's nearly ready now. And now I'm going to add my potatoes. There we go. And the reason why we fry the potatoes before we add the stock is because it also gives the potatoes more of a flavour. So if you can imagine what a raw potato would taste like, really not very nice, it's like flavourless, bland, wouldn't taste of anything. Whereas as soon as you fry it, then it gives it a much, much nicer flavour. So I'm just going to stir that around. So while that's cooking, and just before I add the flour, we're just going to go over to here. And you can see that I've transformed one of my kitchen cupboards into a chalkboard. So I just painted it. I'm just going to go over gelatinisation again. So when we add the flour, so in the flour is the starch granules, and then they're going to start heating up, aren't they? And then they're going to absorb the liquid around them, and they're going to get swollen. And then eventually they burst in the liquid, and then that thickens the liquid. And that's called gelatinisation. Over we go again. And a bit more of a stir. So I can smell the potatoes, the leeks, smelling good. I've turned it up high. I'm just going to turn it down a little bit because I don't want it to burn, but I still want to cook it a tiny bit longer. And we're just going to go back to the cupboard. There we go. So I don't know if you can see it, it's in purple. It's not exactly very clear. But in the leeks, we've got vitamin A, we've got vitamin C, and we've got vitamin K. So vitamin A is really good for your eyes. Vitamin C is really good for your skin. Also in the potatoes, there's vitamin C, and there's vitamin B6, which produces red blood cells, which carries oxygen around your body. So it's a very, very healthy soup. So I always like to think about not only what I eat, but if I eat it, what's it doing to my body? And I find it really, really interesting that different foods can have different effects. Okay, so I think that's just about ready. Just film it, that's it. Just about ready for the flour. So I'm just going to take it off the heat for a second, and I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of plain flour. Now, there have been times when I haven't had any plain flour, so I've just used self-raising or I've used bread flour. So I think at the moment, if you can't get hold of plain flour, then any flour is absolutely fine. Plain flour is preferable, but if you can't get it, then you can add any kind of flour because it all has starch in. So I'm just going to add 2 tablespoons, 1, 2, mix that in, and it just binds everything together. It doesn't look very pleasant, and you can feel it getting thicker. And then I'm going to bring my stock over, and you need to gradually add stock to it. So let's give my stock a stir, and then it needs to go back on the heat. And then I'm just going to add a little bit at a time. So there we go. If you add too much, then it's going to be really lumpy. Add a little bit, stir that in, and then add a little bit more. Stir that in. It doesn't take as long as the white sauce, don't worry, that took a long time. And then add a bit more. So I'm being a bit more generous now, just pouring it in a bit more liberally. Stir that round. And then I'm going to add nearly all of it. Stir that. And then I'm going to add the rest. And if you remember, I only put 1 litre in here, and we're supposed to have 1.2 litres. So I'm just going to add another 200 millilitres of hot water into my jug. I'm going to add it into here, mix it around, and then I'm just going to wait for it to boil up. And then once you see bubbles, once you see it boiling, then turn it right down, and then you need to leave it to simmer for 15 to 20 minutes. So while that's simmering over here, I'm just going to make a start on my croutons. So I'm just using up, quite conveniently actually, the last of the bread we had. We got that from the Isle of Jane stall on Buckingham Market on Tuesday. Luckily, he's there tomorrow, so I'll go there in the morning, obviously with my mask on and social distancing from everyone. Now, I quite often like to use up bread. I don't like wasting food, so this is a really good way of using it up, and it's actually not really very good for a sandwich, so this is perfect. I'm just going to use my knife, and I'm just going to cut it up into fairly thickish croutons. I like really big, chunky, rustic ones. And then the other side here, I'm going to cut this up like that. Okay, and then I've got my croutons there. I've got a tray here. I'll just put those into the tray. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some garlic to my oil. So I've got my oil ready here, already in the ramekin. You can use any little container for that. And I'm just going to get my garlic out of the cupboard. Oh, okay, you're going to see me breaking into the garlic. So if you've just got a bulb of garlic and you need to break into it, the best way to do that is just to put it on the side like this, lean on it, and then it breaks up. So I'm just going to use 1 clove, and I'm going to take the top and bottom of my clove like that, and you just need to peel it. It's like an onion, it's in the same family as onions, and so are leeks actually, all in the same family. And obviously garlic's the strongest one of all. Now what I like to do, and only do this if you have a larger knife, is to just give it a bash, releases all the flavour. If you've got a garlic crusher, by all means use that. If not, then you'll need to just manually cut it up. So first of all, I do it lengthways like that. And then I want to get it into even smaller pieces, because there's nothing worse than having a giant chunk of garlic in something. And then I'm just gonna, there we go, just cut it down. Whenever I use a wooden chopping board and I prepare something with garlic, the smell always stays in for ages. So if I cut up something like a pineapple after, then it tastes like garlic. Or bread, yeah. So I'm just going to give that a little bit of a stir. And we've got the garlic in the oil, and that will infuse in there. And then I'm just going to tip the mixture over the croutons like this. And if you haven't preheated your oven, then preheat your oven for 5 minutes before you put them in. I did preheat my oven earlier, so once I've done this, I can put these straight in, and then they should take no more than 5 minutes to crisp up. And I also like to put a little bit of salt on them to add a little bit more flavour. So actually that's scattered over quite well. If some croutons don't have much oil, then just get your hands in there and give them a little bit of a shake around. Actually, that looks okay. I think I've done quite well there. I'm just going to put a sprinkling salt on. So I've just got, there we go, and straight in the oven, and then they can stay there for 5 minutes. Okay, and then we'll check up on them in a little while. 15 minutes later, I've taken my croutons out of the oven and they look really, really nice. I have to admit that I've already tried a couple of them. They taste delicious. Sorry, Albert. And also, I've tested the potatoes in my soup and they're soft, so that means that the soup's ready, apart from the last few things that we need to add. So all we need to add now is the mustard. Some of you might think that's quite a strange thing to add, but trust me, it really enhances the flavour. So now I'm just going to grab a teaspoon, so half a teaspoon of mustard. There we go. Is in there, and then also you need to add the cheese that you've grated. That needs to go in. I'm using my dairy-free cheese, so I can actually eat some of it. This is going to be our lunch tomorrow. Stir that in. So just wait until the cheese is melted in nicely. Quite often I will use vegan parmesan, and I think that goes really, really well in the soup because it's a very strong flavour and it's quite salty. And I like salty things, so there we go. That's pretty much stirred in. Pepper also brings out the flavour. I'm going to grind some pepper into there. And then the last thing you need to add is your cream. I've got some Alpro cream. I assume most people, I've just got this, which is dairy free, so I can have the soup. But I'm assuming everyone else will be using standard single cream, which is absolutely fine. The cream's gone in, and then you can give it the last little stir. And because the cream's cold, it's slightly cooled it down. So just turn it up. I'm going to turn it up to full, just for about 30 seconds until you can see some bubbles, and then it's ready to serve. It looks really, really nice. It smells delicious. It's bubbling already. I'm just going to take it over to here, put it on the chopping board, and I'm just going to do one serving of it so you can see what it looks like. Quite often, if you buy leek and potato soup from the shop, it will be liquidized down, so it doesn't have the big chunks in, but I absolutely love it with the big chunks, and it feels like you've had more of a meal, in my opinion. There we go. So we've got our bowl of soup, and then just to top it off, a few of the croutons on the top, like that. There we go. And put the camera on me. Okay, so hopefully you'll all manage to get the ingredients for the soup and make the leek and potato soup, and that means you've demonstrated gelatinisation. Thank you.